Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always, Dustin Schutte, and we're joined by Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Great weekend for basketball, for sports, Dustin. It was awesome. The college basketball games were awesome. Indiana with a gigantic win at Michigan. Gigantic because Michigan was a very desperate, good but desperate team, and they were at home. And Indiana won that game with grit, determination, and straight up in your face defense.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. I just rewatched. I watched the last 3 minutes right before I jumped on here just to get a sense of what happened. I didn't realize when the last time was that Michigan had scored. I think the last 5-12, no points for Michigan. I mean, that's incredible. And obviously for a lot of the season, that was an issue for Indiana, is not being the defensive team that they were a year ago. And you certainly could see it in this one that they have just so much found themselves on the defensive end. I mean, like they gave up, I think, 2 field goals in the last 10 minutes of that game. I mean, that's nuts. That is wild. That is phenomenal defense. And just the key possessions when they had to have a stop. You see so many little things that they did well. I mean, obviously at the end, it's Miller Kopp. It's not supposed to be Miller Kopp that's your lock that locks somebody down and forces somebody to throw up trash at the end of the game. Like, that's not supposed to be Miller Kopp's deal, and he did it.
It was a guy that was killing them in the first half too. Yeah,
Jet Howard. I mean, Jet Howard's going to be an NBA player. And obviously it's a 10-second deal where, you only have to defend for a little while. Maxine has thoughts. Anyway, Miller Kopp stands up, makes a play. Just Trace Jackson Davis gets switched out on the perimeter, does a pretty good job of making that not be a problem in a few different cases. Trey Galloway doing a good job I guess doubling down, but sort of like just coming underneath Hunter Dickinson and waiting for that pass that he just swings in and picks off. There was just so many things they did well defensively down the stretch of that game. And it's so much growth, and they don't even necessarily have, what you would say are their best defensive guys out there. Race Thompson's not healthy. Jordan Geronimo was not on the floor down the stretch. And it's not all this group of lockdown guys that you were sort of expecting to be great defenders for this team. It's just a good team outing. And Trace obviously had the one where he got up to the tip of the window, and maybe that's a goaltend, maybe it isn't, but it's impressive either way. And so, yeah, I mean, there are just so many things they did well on defense to lock that game up. And I think Zach wrote it that it's a game Indiana usually loses. I mean, they don't usually go on that kind of, because they had their own offensive drought. They don't win a lot of games where they don't score in the last 2 minutes and win.
Well, not a lot of teams don't.
And, but Indiana's left a lot of those, games on the board, especially on the road. Those are hard, games for them to win. It's, again, a hard place for anybody to win. Michigan's a tougher spot, I think, than a lot of people give it credit for, as far as intimidation factor, and it gets loud in there and everything like that. Like, it's not, you don't put it up there with Breslin and Cole and everything like that. But, Michigan's a tough place to win. And they got it done just with a lot of grit. I mean, they've proven that they can win games a bunch of different ways. And again, this team has just transformed, really over the past month. It is a different basketball team. It got its mind right somewhere in there. And now it can beat just about anybody it wants to beat. I mean, I still don't put them in the, Final Four discussion or whatever. I feel like there are better teams, but I also don't think that there's a great team in college basketball this year. And I think there's some really, really good ones, but I don't think there's anybody that you look at and say, well, there's just no chance that Indiana could beat them on a given night. And they're a different basketball team, and they're playing just really tough, smart, inspired basketball right now.
Well, to me, I just think it comes back to team chemistry. And I talked about this earlier in the season when they were dealing with all those injuries. And I don't want to say I wrote them off, but I thought when they started 1-4, this team's got to find some sort of identity. And I don't know if it was, we talked with Don Fisher earlier, talked about the players only meeting, whether it was something Mike Woodson said, whether it was the players only meeting. This team has found an identity. They've decided that they're going to be locked in defensively pretty much every night. I mean, I think after they gave up 80 points in what seemed like 12 straight games, I know that wasn't the case. But to me, it just, when you have some guys that are in and out of the rotation, you have your best defender and one of your top guards out with Xavier Johnson. You had the injury to Race Thompson, and you dealt with TJD. Like, I just feel like it took time for this team to gel. And now that they're gelling, you're starting to see it can be one guy's night on Tuesday. It can be a different guy's night on Saturday. Then the next Wednesday, it's going to be a third guy's night. So it's just, when you have different guys stepping up, when you have TJD doing what he's doing, putting the team on his back and willing these guys to victory every single night. Like, it's just, I'm just impressed that they were able to locate an identity and stick with it through these past, 8 games, 7 of their last 8. I still don't have access to the stuff I need. So 7 of the last 8, I think they've won now. I mean, just transformation is a great word, because we've seen teams do this in the past, but I don't think anybody expected, the way Indiana started the Big Ten season, for them to be playing as well as they are right now.
Yeah, it was like they flipped a switch as far as intensity was concerned. I think that's a really, really big thing. It's like the games that they were losing, like, they just seemed lost, and you see that sometimes with like they just seemed lost. Like, they just didn't have a sense of what they were doing. And there were guys, and we said this a bunch at the time. I know I said this a lot of the time. Like, even when Race Thompson goes down, you're like, okay, well, you've got Jordan Geronimo and Malik Renew. There's no, I get it. Like, Race Thompson is one of your, he's your veteran. He's your 6-year guy. He's come up with so many big plays in his career. He does everything for you. But, like, Jordan Geronimo is immensely talented. Malik Renew is really talented. And so that shouldn't kill you, that shouldn't kill you. Xavier Johnson hurts, obviously, because now you only have one point guard, but he's a 5-star point guard. For as much as, like, yes, that's a loss. That's a significant loss. But, like, it was an awkward deal having to play both of them in the first place. Like, you had to kind of find this sort of funky chemistry to make 2 point guards work at the same time. And, yes, it's going to be adjustment, but, like, you have a 5-star guard playing his position, and there are like 2 or 3 other guys at the 2 and 3 that you can play that are perfectly capable of being out there. Tamar Bates and Trey Galloway and those guys, and even digging up for CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks. Those are talented freshmen. There are people you can get minutes, and it just seemed like the biggest thing they did is they decided they were going to guard. And they decided, like, okay, like, we're going to really get after it. And I think there was a practice where I think Woodson just went after them and said, like, this is how hard you guys got to play. Like, we can't fade into this. We can't do this thing where we're, like, relaxing and not going at it all the time. Like, we're not beating anybody if we're not really, really defending hard. And since then, they're a different basketball team. It's like they very much absorbed that lesson quickly and applied it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that happened is they just sort of, decided, okay, we're really going to defend and get after it. And I think Trace Trace looks healthier. I mean, like Trace looks fine right now. And that's an issue, is that there was
Maxine disagrees.
That's right.
She disagrees with something. But there was a while just Trace didn't look healthy, and that was an issue. Where he was definitely grinding it out every night. And there's not been a day where he didn't play hard, but there were definitely games where that back was screaming at him, and you could tell.
Absolutely. And that was a part of it. There was just there's no doubt there is a what I call a line of demarcation. There was a line of demarcation, and I put out a tweet the other day, and I just enjoyed watching the fanboy people go nuts over it, because I didn't say anything or make any comment. I just put numbers out, and people went crazy. It was during that time also, and I call it the letter, was received and posted, which it is not kosher to send letters to student athletes like that. Let's get that out of the way. First of all, no, I'm not supporting that. It's dumb. It's just dumb. And if I need to say that, I don't know that I don't have much more for you. I shouldn't have to say that. It's already dumb. You're an adult. You should know that. But I use the word
there. I think I knew him from a previous life. I think, from a He was, I believe he was a Hoosier Scoop poster way back in the day.
Well, first of all, the fact that you do that tells you a little bit about somebody. And and so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give the guy a break because I don't know what is going on in his life. So
yeah, I don't know what's up with that guy. That's a thing.
So
that has to be, yeah.
That's why I didn't name anybody, because it had nothing to do with a person. It had nothing to do with a letter. But there was a line of demarcation. And I think that it was a coagulation of many things, but including was frustration of not playing well. And, of course the injuries were there and all of that, and they were dealing with, and that's part of dealing with all of that and being frustrated, not being able to play as well as you'd like to, but they also were not playing tough. The whole team was not playing tough. And if you don't believe me, why don't you go back and look at the pressers from Mike Woodson, from the team themselves, because they all said it. So people need to stop getting all bent out of shape when it's pointed out in one way. Forget that. It's a point of, there was just a line of demarcation made by Trace. I think, when he posted the letter, it doesn't have anything to do with the letter. Forget about the letter. The letter is a coagulation to me of all the stuff, of all the injuries, of all the chatter, of all the talk, of all the coaches getting up their butts. And then they had a team meeting. Well, why do you think they had a team meeting? Because things were not going right. No. So then, since that line of demarcation, my God, the production is off the charts. The production for Trace Jackson Davis has jumped 10 points a game. 10 points a game. His first 10 games, he averaged 16 points a game. The 11 games immediately after, in between that period, that, I don't know, the line of demarcation, I'm going to call it. It's 26 points a game. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking a radical difference. Yes, the injuries helped. Getting over that helped. But this team has played much better. This team has played better defense. Miller Kopp has, I think, also taken grief. I'm giving him grief because he deserved grief. But now he deserves lots of praise. He's busting his ass. And I'm going to give him the praise for busting his ass. He's been playing great. He played his defense was a big part of the reason they won at Michigan. His defense is a reason that is part of the reason why Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis can play so well together. Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis playing well together is another reason why. There are so many reasons, but it all centered from that. There was a center port where it exploded and went the other direction.
Right. No, it's just there was a decision made that they couldn't win the way they were playing. That they had to be better. They had to be tougher. They had to play with more intensity, and it wasn't there. And there were really good players, really talented players who were giving them nothing, from a production standpoint that have stepped up in some way, shape, or form. And again, their best player took it up another level, and a big part of it is just because he feels physically better. I don't think there's been a time where Trace wasn't giving you everything he had. Maybe you guys got that impression. I didn't. I didn't see a time when I was, watching them, and I obviously haven't watched every game because I've been watching the Pacers. But the games I've seen, I haven't seen Trace dog it, this year at any point. But it seems to me like a weight was lifted off of him, and that might be in a physical sense, like there is less pressure going on in his back, and that means he can move and he can jump and he can run. And it's just different. I think that the difference I think for Trace is physical. The difference for a lot of the other guys is mental. At least that's my read. And I like there's the mental ease that comes with being able to do with what your body wants to do. That obviously that's a part of it. But I think the biggest difference in Trace is, his back's fine and now he can play. And I think that was a big issue. It's just that guy just was not healthy at all. For a while, even though he could play on whatever he had, he just wasn't the same guy.